Finally, you may need to man up and become a commissioner next year, guys. If you want the job done right, do it yourself. G'day and welcome back to the Upside Fantasy Sports podcast. Another little bonus episode here at the back end of the season. Probably should have got this one out a little bit earlier before finals started and people got knocked out and lost a bit of interest, and they're probably a bit sour potentially on draft and whatnot. But it's better late than never, because I can point people to this in the off season in the coming weeks. And if I do a refined version in the preseason next year, I will. But I just want to strike while the iron's hot, while it's all these sort of topics are fresh on my mind and fresh in the Discord and the community and the conversation. So that's sort of the motivation behind what I'm doing here, is just a bit of an introduction to draft, but more about, we'll touch on a few things, but more about, first of all, why you would play draft. So if you haven't played it before and you're considering it, some of the things that I've taken from my own thoughts, as I've only ever really been a diehard drafter. Tried harder in Classic and especially NRL Fantasy this year, which was really fun, and doing quite well in the NRL Fantasy side of things, which is great, and nice different game play style to Supercoach. And I used to play NRL Draft before switching to Supercoach, so I've sort of done, quote unquote, done it all. And where I've landed as my favorite thing is Supercoach Draft, and then NRL Fantasy and Supercoach Classic are both fine. They're just not, I'm not as motivated in those to win. It's pretty anonymous. If you're ranked really highly, all of a sudden you care, and if you're not ranked super highly, it doesn't have the same level of intensity and reward and toxicity even as draft does. So we'll get into that. But then the main thing today, guys, is what are the optimal settings? What are my thoughts on all the key settings and options when it comes to draft, and how I think we should be moving, what I think we should be moving towards as a sort of community of drafters. There's no exact perfect settings, but I talk about the scale, the edges of what you can do, and why not to go too far one way or the other with certain things. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, without too much more delay, let's jump in. I've just got a few little slides to sort of work through here to keep me on track, I suppose. Otherwise I could ramble forever about draft. But why would you even play draft in the first place? Why would you, if you're a Classic player or an NRL fan, why would you pivot to the draft format? So first of all, my favorite thing is your player is your player. There's only one Hamiso Tabuai Fido, one Kalen Ponga for the league. So when you draft them, you know you've got them, and if you've put your sort of eggs in that basket, if they go really well, you benefit, and if they go poorly, you pay the price. That is the best part of it, because you have that uniqueness. You construct your team as best you can for your preferences of player and who you think will go well, or who you think's of value in the draft, yada yada. That player is your player until you trade them away. So sort of as a part of that, to an extent, is that you're fully rewarded for your knowledge, your predictions, and the analysis you put into drafting or waiver pickups or trading, because there's only that one asset. There's less of a public consensus on players as there is in Classic, where, for example, Dom Young, I got on him really early. He did really well, and within a week or two, everyone else was on him, and I just lose that buzz. And then now I have to pivot. Do I pod? That's not as rewarding to me as knowing I drafted Dom Young in the 6th round and he's giving me 3rd round value. I get to own that all year, and if I win, that was my jackpot, or that was my checkmate move, and that just feels like nothing can compare to that feeling. There's another note here, but I'll just quickly jump in. This is also, draft is the standard in the American sports. There's no salary cap NFL or basketball. Draft is standard sort of globally, I guess, apart from EPL fantasy, which is fine. But yeah, draft it's popular for a reason. Fantasy football in America is popular for a reason, and there's a reason it's draft. It's the best way. Winning matters. Winning really matters. I find, like, in Classic, all I really care about is my overall rank, because my overall rank's good, then I'm usually doing pretty well on head-to-head anyway, and then all of a sudden you care about head-to-head for a little bit. Draft, like, literally it feels like every weekend matters in a good league, which is just an intense, fun hobby for 26 weeks of the year, plus that's not even including pre-draft preparation, which can be months if you're a diehard, which is really fun for a effectively free hobby. Like, it just doesn't get better than that. So many hours. You can own your favorite players and no one else gets that benefit. So if you really love Pat Carrigan, you can draft him a little bit earlier than everyone else. If you're really keen, no one else gets Pat. Like, that's your boy, you get him. That's sick. People love that part of it. The asset differentiation, as I sort of alluded to in these other points, it's really addictive and it is complex. And it's boiled down to not everyone has access to all players. In Classic, everyone has access to all players, given they've got the budget for it. Sorry, my nose just got super itchy when I started filming this, so apologies if it looks stupid. I just got a little bit of hay fever coming in now, which is great. But yeah, moving on. So yeah, the asset differentiation is really cool that the only available players are the free agency or waiver pool, and there comes strategy with that because there's an opportunity cost when you drop someone and pick someone else up. Yeah, that's a really fun part of it. A few more points. Trading is unique and rewarding. Trading isn't you've got 40 trades, you can trade as much as you want with the waiver and the free agency, or you trade with other players, which is a strategy. It's a reason to communicate with your mates and your league opponents. You're in touch. You need to foster relationships, nurture relationships, or you could be the bad guy that no one trades with. There's all sorts of roles and complexities and strategies that come out of trading in draft because every asset there's only one of each asset. Sort of on that draft prep stuff, it's just really addictive and rewarding to do your lists or to listen to your podcasts, watch your YouTubes like I have, go to my website, read articles and plan your draft. It's really addictive, feeling like you're getting your research in and your toolkit ready. It's just a great hobby for the modern life. We all typically commute to work in one way or another. This is just one thing to do in those downtimes of life, or that last hour on a Friday arvo, you pull up your draft planning spreadsheet at work and you just chip away at it. Like, it's a really great hobby. And yeah, Classic has the same, but people start with the same cheapies, or there's a bit of differentiation on guns and then it's a bit of a mad rush. I'm not trying to smash on Classic. I'm just saying why you may choose draft as well, or to try something different. Draft day and draft night is the best day of the year. So it's a dedicated period of time when you do your draft, whether it's an auction or a snake draft, whether it's in person or online via the platform, or online offline, meaning you do it on a spreadsheet in a Zoom or Teams meeting. So you're all together online, but you're doing it off of the application so you can have some more customization and control over your draft. That doesn't matter. It's all the same level of excitement and buzz. And you bond with those people. So me and my league, we have been going away for draft weekends, which is just really fun and addictive. It's just footy. We watch the international games. I think the Maori All-Stars we watched this year. We get on the beers, we have a draft. It's just a sick time. If you do a snake draft, you can create competitions to develop a draft order. So you don't just say random name out of a hat picks first. That works well too. You can definitely do that. But you could say, guys, we're going to do a beach sprint and then a swim race in the hotel pool and then a hold your breath comp, and you can tally up the scores and do the draft order out of that. So there's a bit of competition associated with the order. It's all sorts of ways you can make that night, day, weekend really fun if you want. And then another one here, it's just for some people, draft just feels more competitive. It feels more energetic and toxic. And I think because you own your own wins and mistakes more acutely. In Classic, you can quickly recover a mistake with a quick trade out. Guy doesn't do well, gets injured, you trade out. In draft, someone gets injured, it means one more. Do you hold them? Do you trade them? Do you drop them outright? So much more intensity with every decision. And as I've written here, it's more hit or miss, so you truly benefit season long for good picks, whereas Classic people can trade out those misses as more forgiving. And I think you should play both, because it's nice to have Classic to focus on at times when draft isn't going well or draft's quiet, and vice versa. If Classic's just you've missed the boat on a lot of stuff, focus on your draft team. But it's really important to understand the difference there and how addictive that can be when there's just so much more riding on your good decisions. So next one. In Classic, I've found in my time that the head-to-head Classic winners, they're just quickly forgotten. No one remembers next year when someone won Classic last year. In my fantasy, NRL Fantasy and my Classic leagues, it's not spoken about. Oh, great, you won head-to-head. You feel good for a day or a weekend or a week. In draft, the winners have that eternal thing. You've always won a draft league. It just tends to be something no one forgets. I've won 2 leagues. I've won 3 times. I've never won and I've played for 7 years. All these different stories. It's just so much more intensity around draft. I don't know. I think because there's not that offset of overall rank or luck in head-to-head. It's just sort of, it's draft, man. You just got your guys against their guys. There's no matchings or unique players or captaincy challenges or whatever it may be. So And that really hit hard when you have proper rewards and what I like to call majesty in your draft reward system. So you create a real air of being special when you win. So it might be a trophy that you own or a name etched into a league trophy. For us, we do T-shirts that are unique that commemorate the team you've got in a graphic style that's like cool enough to wear to the footy on a weekend if you wanted, but we just wear them to draft day. So the winner's circle is very elite. We do a championship ring too, so you've got some bling to look at during the season. I've even done my logo on a mug for myself that you can see here, just to give you an example. So my team name at the time, you've got the 3 players I put on it that scored well that weekend for a bit of fun. Sorry, I was talking away from the mic, but just super cool stuff like that. We just do, I should show you the back too, has the rest of the roster. All those players weren't in the final team, but they were enough to be part of the, commemoration sort of thing. And so when I won that, it felt epic, and it always feels epic. And you'd think, I've won now, I've got a shirt and a ring. No, it's like, I want more. I want to block people out of that championship circle on draft day. Me and 2 other guys feel more special than everyone else who don't have those special items. And as I said, it does pair well with Classic. Not even to mention waiver study and the thrill reward each week of getting the guy you want off waivers, or picking a guy who no one looks at who does really well off waivers. One of the best feelings. That's weekly. You've got that waiver game each week. Getting sit starts correct feels more rewarding too, obviously, because wins have a bit more value associated with them, and there's not that myriad of massive scores where those things kind of drop out. It's like, no, every decision sort of matters to an extent. The waiver piece is a big part of it. If you follow me, or if you're looking to get into draft, you'll see each week I do a whole video effectively on waivers, because it can help people, and injuries happen, and restings and buy rounds and origins. So waivers is a really cool strategic part of the game, because some people who don't know draft might think you draft your team and that's that. No, every week there's changes you need to make. There's management to your team effectively every week, whether it's just sit starts that take a bit of decision making, captaincy, vice captaincy, but often you're dropping someone or picking someone up off waivers nearly every week. If your benches and stuff are designed well, which we'll get into in a sec. So yeah, don't think that you just draft your team and walk away and hope they go well. We've seen in the Discord guys come from last into finals over like 6 to 7 weeks, because they just said, you know what, I need to play harder and do better. So they threw trades out there to their opponents. They got on waivers and picked up different players and took gambles and stuff. So it is, you get out what you put in draft, from preparation to weekly maintenance of your team. You absolutely get out what you put in, which is really, really rewarding. So Supercoach or Fantasy is a quick one I want to touch on. So the difference is fundamentally that Fantasy, it sort of tends to reward base activities such as running and tackling more than Supercoach. The key differences being Fantasy rewards third man in tackles, so your middles and your edges flopping on as the third player get a point for that, which does accumulate and impact their value more, means their sort of middles and stuff outperform attacking players in the game. And try assists and line breaks are worth less than they are in Supercoach. So those attacking plays, they're not the sort of big deal they are in Supercoach. So I find the website and stuff for Fantasy is much easier for people. There's pictures with the players. It's very easy to navigate the Fantasy website as opposed to Supercoach. Draft wise, the Fantasy in NRL Draft is got no real customization to the rosters. There's 4 or 5 options, and they're just setups, and they just don't work anymore. Big part of the reason we explored changing after a few years on Fantasy in the early days was because I just needed more customization as a commissioner who's very hands-on, as you guys would know. Can you imagine my league? It's very detailed. So Supercoach has way more customization, way more control to improve the experience for yourself and your league players. And more importantly, Supercoach brings more players from the player pool into contention and value because of the attacking stat level of reward in Supercoach. It's far more pleasing from a entertainment perspective, because if you have players and they just get a line break, that can mean a lot. A line break means a lot in a footy game, and it means a lot in the scoring, which is really important. And then you've got your wingers that score a try or two in a game. They become relevant, whereas most wingers are absolutely irrelevant in Fantasy, which is just really upsetting, because they're a big part of the game. Lastly, there's no kick meters in Supercoach. So again, you can't have mediocre halves that just kick and bomb all day to score 40 points. Like if they're a bad half at footy that just kicks, they're not relevant in Supercoach. Whereas Supercoach really rewards try assists, tries, line break assists, things that actually lead to benefits to the football team in the real footy. So overall, that's my opinion. I've heard some counter opinions from fantasy scoring. I just think once you try Supercoach with an open mind, you usually don't go back. I do like NRL Fantasy, the salary cap version on NRL. For some reason, that's quite enjoyable, but draft-wise, guys, it's pretty much Supercoach only. And there's not a single NRL Fantasy Draft content creator that's pumping out regular content. Supercoach stats are more readily available, and there's way more draft community and content creators such as myself and a few other people for Supercoach, which is just sort of far more enjoyable. As a hobby, you want to consume content about it. So on that one, we move on. Snake or auction. So Snake Draft, consider implementing a third round reversal if you do it, meaning first picks out to number 10, 10 picks again, they pick down to first again, and then it reverses and 10 picks again, because the value of pick 1 is so much better than pick 10. You don't have to. We saw this year the top 5 picks were not very relevant, so this was one of the years where regular snake drafting wasn't too bad, but in the past there's been so much more firepower in the top half of the draft compared to like the turn, for example, that I think it just evens it out a little bit when you reverse by the third round. So first doesn't pick again and just get 2 picks at the 20th point and 1 at 1. It just gets a bit tough. So just consider that depending on how you think about it. It's very popular in basketball to have a third round reversal because of that. The gap in those top few players has gotten bigger over time. Also, consider making people compete for ladder order if you're doing a typical snake draft. Your draft mates somehow figure out a way to compete for order to add a bit of fun and bonding and stuff around that period of time in the pre-draft process. Auction draft, I have a template which you should know by now. If you're new here, I have a template on my website. Please check it out. It will help you organize an offline auction draft. It appears daunting, but it's literally game changing. It's a true test of skill and knowledge, the auction draft. It makes the draft a huge part of strategy and outcome, and doesn't have as much of like a merry-go-round of luck, because you can manage so many more variables with your budget and the way you deem a player worthy of rostering. I have a video for it, which I'll link somewhere, or just go to my channel. You'll see an introduction to auction drafting. I thoroughly recommend checking that out. If you're a diehard drafter, you've got to explore auction drafting. We'll be hosting some in the community just to give people a taste, or they might just be in leagues that'll never do it and they want to do it. So we're going to facilitate some of that. Me and the guys in the Discord, I hope we can do that in the before next season. Guys, quickly for finals periods. Finish your season before the final round at nearly all costs. So at all costs, finish a round before the season ends. So this year it's round 26. You should be your grand final for draft. Play the buy rounds, guys, because there's so many now and they add interesting complexity and strategy. I don't need to go overboard on that. Just do it. Play it. You want all weekends to be playable. You don't want weekends off. Who wants to sit and not play Supercoach or Fantasy? Like, play the buy rounds. So that was this one. Sorry. Yeah, so play buy rounds. Yep. Waivers should always be first pick to last, meaning a person who is a waiver priority 1 drops to the end of the order once they burn that pick. Guys, there's usually 4 to 5 gun waivers per year and several other tier 2 level waivers. So allowing bottom to always have first is just too much of a leg up. So please make sure your waivers are first pick to last. If you don't know what waivers are, send me a message, make a comment. I'll explain how the waiver process works. It's a huge component of draft. Is one of the biggest components of the draft: experience, challenge, and strategy, the waiver process. Trades should be all good. They're pretty self-explanatory, except make the commissioner have veto power, and the reason being is due to mostly just cheating. You need someone who can strike out a trade. The commissioner should only veto, if there's something immensely unfair or some collusion going on. But before that ever happens, you want to have a voting process where if something really seedy or sus comes up, you flag it in your league group chat and you say, guys, this one's pretty clear, vote to veto, and you just need majority rule. Then the commissioner strikes out. That's the best way to do it. Don't just be an autocratic commissioner, meaning don't just do what you think's right all the time. Please go to a vote for stuff. But ultimately, it has been established in the broader fantasy sports global communities that it is the best experience when someone does have the final say, because if they're trusted to be the commissioner and everyone plays in that league is signing up to that commissioner having that trust and that power, something's really unfair and people are bickering. Someone needs to put their foot down. Someone needs to take the lead. You can't ruin a season because of being scared to upset a few people by striking out cheating or collusion. You just do it. It is harder to manage with that veto commissioner stuff, but with clear rules set out in advance of the season, you can get ahead of it because most people are adults now. If you say, hey, remember we spoke about this or you guys agreed, I'm just following on what we agreed upon. It's pretty clear. Some people say you should veto nothing and allow all trades, but I just think that's insane when people are so keen to cheat. People are so keen to cheat. And with money and prizes and punishments on the line, you cannot take that risk, guys. So yeah, have a bit of balls about you when it comes to commissioning and trades and taking some control over the BS that can happen. Also with trades, you need to make sure it's clear that once a team is frozen out of finals, statistically or whenever that happens, that they're clearly unable to make finals, that they are barred from trading. They should still be allowed to play up until finals though, so that means they can waiver and play competitively until finals begin, but they cannot team-to-team trade. It's just too unfair. It's too stupid. As a commissioner, you need to monitor teams that are out of contention, so dropping their good players. Like if someone's out of contention, they just go, oh, I'm going to drop Ponga this weekend for Terrell Sloan. That seems like harmless, right? Because they're out of, who cares? No, it's that someone else could pick up Ponga and all of a sudden have a clearly the best. It can completely skew the integrity and the competitiveness of the league. Commission people need to look out for that and they need to ban that and scrap that stuff. So everyone just needs to know, again, before the season goes in, it's just a message. These are the rules around trading, guys. A, B, C. Does everyone agree? Make sure everyone's on the same page. You just don't want weird stuff happening. It just, after 26 rounds of hard work, you just don't want people or 23 rounds of, people ruining finals and the competitive part of the season just because they're lazy or disgruntled that they got it wrong this year. You just need to have some controls in place, and that's just a fact. Setups, so captains or vice captains, guys, no right or wrong on this one, absolutely. But I just do think if you are playing captains, guys, please make sure VC is an option and people can AE loop. You make a decision. Do you explain how to AE loop and have everyone on the same page, or do you just let that competitive part come out later in the season? I just think it's a bit brutal when you have one captain with no vice. I think it's a little too punishing, a bit too. If you're going to have the gimmick of captains and vice captains, which my league does, so I do it. I think it's okay then to have the gimmick of VC looping and AEing, because I just think it's part of that. You open that gate, I think you have to take the step into AE loops and VCs. There is a guy in the comp who they ban AE looping for finals, so they're happy to do it all season, but just in finals, they just stop it. I'm okay with that too if that does work for you. I just think captains and vice captains without looping is a bit savage, just with the game, with the world we're in with HIAs and stuff. I think it's really more fun to give you a second chance each weekend effectively. Like let your VC play, then your captain play later. Watch them. Do they get a head knock? Whatever. Everyone has a VC and a captain, so it's not unfair to have that. It's just a different game style. I won't hear arguments that, it's gimmicky, but then you have a flex league. That's gimmicky too. So you pick your gimmick and you stick with it. You either run all the gimmicks or one or two, but if you pick a gimmick, you do the gimmick properly, guys. So for me, captains and vice captains, consider AEs, consider how you want to educate your league on AEs. Do you want to share with them how to do it so that everyone's on the same page? Because that's pretty fun. It's fun having a guy double score. That's just fun. Like if you're going to have that gimmick, make it fun. Don't make it scary. Don't make it ugly to do it. And then if you have no captains or vice captains, that's fine. Then you don't have to AE or whatever you want, however you want to run that system. So what else did I have on the captain stuff? I'll just quickly check my notes. Yeah, captain. So that being said, so the reason that we do captains is it's more fun, chaotic, that you can implement. It's always been part of the NRL experience on like the fantasy side of things. So that's why we go about it. Like it's just sort of a classic thing. We've always had the double score in the NRL sort of fantasy sports world, even back in the day on Supercoach and fantasy and whatnot. And I think it works well for auction drafts, guys, because you can get, like, if there was no captains and vice captains, people would all draft balance and the auction would just get, that's fine, but that would be one thing. Whereas I like that stars and scrubs is a viable strategy, because then you can go a balanced team versus stars and scrubs, and it creates a really fun, environment in our league, roster construction wise, and the strategy on draft day gets really spicy when you've got teams that, like me, who try to go for stars and scrubs, and you've got other guys that love a balanced team. They go, oh, look at me, I've come out of the draft with 11 awesome players, and I come out of there going, holy crap, I've only got Nathan Cleary. What am I going to do? So I love that part of it, rather than me wrestling every dollar out of people because everyone wants a balanced team. That's just not what we do. There's no right or wrong though, as I said. So just pick your poison. That's just why we do it. What else I said? I also think captains and vice captains adds to the analysis and pre-draft experience. Do you choose a safe or an upside captain? Do you want a guy you can just get 65 out of every week, or a guy who can get you 150? Like, that's fun. That's that layer to building a team and building a strategy. I think it's a value add for trade discussions and can keep things dynamic. So with captains, you can say like, look, you've lost your captain. I'll trade you this guy who had been a captain option before if you give me these two guys, or you know what I mean, or you're missing a VC guy, like you've only got the captain, like here, I'll trade you a Pappenhausen who's an optional, like a decent VC here and there if you just give me those two guys. You know, you kind of can, who aren't VCs, but you know, it just adds a bit of trade, not so much bait, but adds a bit of trade complexity and value there. So, but ultimately, captains on captains is actually one of the things that's less relevant to me. It's more about if you're doing it, do it right, as I sort of mentioned. So next one, we're 25 minutes in. This is going to be a big potty. Important. Roster and bench sizes. This is super important, guys. No matter what you do, never have less than two RFs. So never less than 2 back rowers and never less than 3 CTWs. They're the deeper positions and should not be cut down. Guys, in no world is 2 CTW rosters fun or optimal. It just doesn't make sense. It's the most fun is mixing up with wingers and centers and stuff. Minimum 3 CT dubs, maximum 4. Never go above what's on a footy field in any position. It's just weird. That's why I don't like 2 fullbacks or flex. Doesn't reflect the real footy field. I don't mind coming down for reasons around managing rosters around bench size and HIAs and stuff, which is what we do, but never go above what's on a footy field, in my opinion. Trend of 1 front rower is kind of lame. I think you should have 2 RFs. It creates a good waiver churn. People are trying to find that second front rower. I think you've got to just, as I said, follow what's on the footy field most of the time. I'm not a fan of the 2 fullbacks or flex leagues, but I don't admonish them. You can do them. That's fine. Everyone, you know, horses for courses, however you want to do it. But my reasoning is I think it makes the most sense to be as close as possible to a run-on footy field, and the risk with 2 fullbacks and flex is the overpowering risk of some of the more advanced players in leagues just dominating in that way. I think it's also fun trade and opportunity cost decision making when there's an abundance of fullbacks to choose from. It's just also too strong of a position to let the top 6 be fielded by 3 teams. That doesn't make sense to me. For example, like I think there's just too much power in having 2 fullbacks if you get lucky or get right with your drafting spot and whatnot. That being said, I do understand the counter argument that then you draft according to the value increase of fullbacks. But for myself, I'm not that interested in a draft where the first 12 players are all fullbacks, for example. But I know the counter to that is then, well, pivot and draft the other spots. But yeah, that's just not how I want to play and what I foresee as being super enjoyable. I just think there's 1 fullback on the footy field, they're the stud. There should be 1 in your fantasy team, they're the stud. That's just my opinion. What was I going to say? Another point is that that just trends a little into the sort of gimmick territory, and I think captains vice captains is enough of a chaos lever to pull, to integrate into your league. If you want a bit of spice, do the captains vice captains with AE loops play. I don't think the flex and double fullbacks is like one for me personally. And then furthermore, it just makes standard rankings and stuff a little skewed, which isn't fun for content creators and the general standardization. So that's one part of it. What I would suggest is if you just run a more standard league with captains and my roster settings that I recommend, for example, but hey, go on and get some of your friends and do a spicy double fullback league. But I would think a home league should be more standardized. That's just sort of my opinion. Again, do your thing there. And again, that being said, whatever you do, never have 2 CTWs and you're well on track. And if you're stuck, leave rosters standard to represent real footy teams. You can't go wrong. Like, that's pretty fun. But on that, in terms of standard footy teams, where I would change that is benches. So I'm huge on extending the benches a bit, or marginally, as of the new age NRL. Like, I think we really need to move from 4 benches to 5-man, and I'll hear 6-man benches, depending on how you justify it. For example, I do run 6-man benches just due to the fact we run an auction draft. I've made the decision as a commissioner to put more value on the people that are drafted in the auction when you walk away, so you don't feel like you have to drop people straight away with injuries and head knocks. I want you to keep the guys you drafted for as long as you want to, because we make a massive deal of the draft, and I just want that to be the case, and I think it's working so far. Haven't had too many issues with like hoarding stuff. Waivers are dead by the end of the season because, guys that you think like should be on the waivers in round 23 before finals, they're not there because someone picked them up 2 weeks ago. Now they're out of contention. That's just fine. That's part of the game. I think any larger than 6 is quickly down the wrong path on draft, guys. I would suggest 4-man drafts, 4-man benches before you get to 7. I'd rather less than more, but I think 6 is okay and 5 is probably optimal. So whatever you do, have 3 or more CTWs and 4 to 5-man benches. That is my advice when it comes to rosters and benches and stuff. Finals, if you play a 10-man league, you should do top 6 finals. Top 8 just a bit too soft. It's a bit too, like if you're in a newbie league, maybe you do that, but if you're in a competitive league, it should be top 6 finals. Creates quite a bit of panic in the mid-table, and caution gets thrown to the wind, which is good for engagement and strategy plays. I then believe you should give 1 and 2 the bye week. Then they play each other in week 2 to see who progresses to the final in week 4 and who drops down into the forgiveness of the semi-final in week 3 against the winner of the rest. That's just the best way to do it, because you need to have some reward for winning the regular season, because it's a really tough thing to do to finish the top of the table in a competitive league in footy draft, NRL draft stuff. So yeah, reward them, guys. And you can win from 4th and 3rd going 4-0. It's achievable, but it's hard, and it should be hard. But yeah, just do whatever you do, make sure 1 and 2 get some sort of reward or second chance or a bye, because like they need that reward. Otherwise, I just think they deserve that award. It's tough to do. On the topic of rewards more broadly around winning it all, I think it's important to create some sort of majesty for your league. Reward the winners with something unique that lasts in time, so you create a bit of a winner circle. That's when you start getting the competitive spirit out of people. They go, shit, we've been doing this for 4 years. I'm not in the winner circle. What do I have to change this year to do that? Like, I have to try harder, get more competitive, get more locked in, make more trades. When people feel like they're not in that clique, they start to fight a bit harder, in my experience and just my opinion. So we do rings and shirts that I mentioned. They're one of ones, they can never be repeated. So you always have that majesty, that glory of winning. Maybe after 25 years, everyone has a shirt, blah, blah, and it starts to lose a bit of that, but we'll mix it up by then. We'll change, 25 years, we'll have more money. So we'll make a huge dollar value reward or something, or we'll have a shrine to people that have won more than twice or some sort of thing like that. If you don't properly reward the winner, you cheapen the experience and the intensity. You lessen that bitterness, that toxicity, that drive. You want to kind of lure people into really wanting to win. Makes people care, makes people play better. Finally, you may need to man up and become a commissioner next year, guys. Do not whinge about your commissioner and league settings if you're not willing to grow up and set up and manage the league. If you want the job done right, do it yourself. There's not a fantasy league I'm in, except one for NBA, that I don't commission, and I don't really care about that one because I'm sick of it not being done right, and I want to do the best, do the best I can and build the best experience for the guys, because I want the league to be special and fun and addictive. It takes work, it takes energy, but it's always worth it. And ultimately, having a bit of control so no bullshit gets through is always good. But yeah, sometimes you're just gonna have to say, hey guys, like, it's been awesome, but I'm going to be the commissioner this year, or I want to be. Is everyone okay with that? I want to do things a bit differently to try and get a fairer, more addictive league, or take things more seriously. Whatever the message is you've got to put behind it, go for it. Or just starting a new league where you bring new people in and go, hey, we're going to try this. It's going to be, I'm going to get money. There's going to be buy-in, so you will commit. I don't want people dropping off, because if they've paid $50 or $35, whatever it is to enter, then hopefully they don't just walk away and piss that money up the wall. Hopefully they try and win. You let them know the rules early, guys. So have just a one-page rules or constitution if you want to go that far. That just outlines what the do's and the don'ts are of the league and the way it's going to work. And make sure people know if in year one you might make a mistake or two, that's fine. As long as it's not cheating, it's just a genuine mistake, that's cool. It's a commissioner. But, suck up, guys. Get it done. Step up to the plate. It's not that hard. It's honestly a couple of it's a little bit of logistics here and there. That's all it is. It's, 30 minutes setting up the league, getting the invites out, and all the other stuff you can share out. If you're organizing a weekend, you can divvy that task up with your mates. But yeah, that's sort of the main one there. I did want to say record keeping's also interesting. Like if you keep records, it helps people if they're addictive like that. I like data, as you guys know. So I love to see like what was the highest score each year. Who were the best players in a winning team, and so you can look back in 6 years and go, oh, that guy won and he had Brian Toto and Nico Hines, and then 5 years later he won again with Brian To'o, but he had Mitch Moses. It's really fun to look at that stuff and creates a nice, majesty and a bit of I don't know really what to say. Like it deepens the spirit of the league, so to speak. And at the end of the day, guys, it is important to just play and have fun. And these suggestions and commentary about enhancing that fun and the quality and keeping people returning, and so that the hobby can grow, because the more the numbers grow, the more energy these websites put into improving the experience. So that's what this is. This is just saying, hey, it's great that you play. This is how you could do it better. Or if you haven't played, this is the best way to start to make sure you have the most fun you can, because we want to grow the hobby. But that's it for me in this bonus episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're at the pointy end of the season. I will be plugging this everywhere next year if I don't do an updated version, but these are some of the things, some of my thoughts vocalized, and some of the things I think are best practice for your leagues. I know some of you might disagree, especially on the dual fullbacks, and the flex league. I know that those are, contentious topics. That's just my opinion. Just relax. It's all good. You can play them. I'm not going to browbeat you. They're just my views. People are going to argue about AEs. That's fine. Just my opinion. And people are going to argue about captains, non-captains. That's fine too. Do your thing. I know captains, vice captains a bit of a gimmick, and I balance it with the AE loop. And so far, no real issues. It just works with our strategy, but I'm open. We did do a year, no captains, and I think it was just boring. It just got to the point where, it felt like you couldn't throw caution to the wind and claw things back. And I forgot to mention in that area that with captains, in a league where we've got a lot of head knocks and people coming off early with head knocks and stuff like that, I think captains helps you offset. If a guy gets 10 for you, you've got a good captain plan, and he scores 100 and then you double it 200, it helps offset that 10. Without captains, it's who gets the most luck with HIAs. That's what it is. Captains helps offset bad scores effectively. So that's a big part of it. I should have mentioned that. I completely forgot. So hopefully you tuned in and stuck around until this point, because I just had a massive light bulb moment there with the big reason why we do captains is to help offset the bad luck that we see in NRL, because the draft websites haven't improved to allow us to nullify a score if it's a HIA, have a second chance of the dice, whatever it may be, with those early injuries that just kill your whole weekend's vibe. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching.